March 3rd, 2022, 10 p.m. Everyone's in the theater. I've been working all day. I have to get up in 4 hours. I'm gonna watch Batman, I don't care. We're talking about Batman today.
Yeah, there we go.
Welcome back, guys. Usually when we talk about blockbusters, we do it for 10 minutes. But I have a feeling this one is really good. The Batman just came out. It's the first solo Batman movie. You know, there's Batman v Superman, but it's the first solo Batman movie since 2012. But let's just jump into this. I know that Daniel and I are bigger Batman fans than Jack. So let's start with Daniel, and then we'll go to Jack, and then we'll go to me.
The movie is really good. It's really ambitious. There's so much about it that I really appreciate. I think the thing that going into it I expected just from interviews and from the trailers and stuff, the thing I expected was that Matt Reeves was gonna get it. He was gonna understand the assignment. He seems to fundamentally understand Batman, and in a way that the fans understand Batman, and people who have been reading the comics for a long time understand Batman. And he has a good sense of what makes him the most interesting superhero. And part of that is that he creates his villains, and that he is so full of rage and anger and trauma, and beating up petty criminals isn't solving anything. And these are the inherent things about Batman that are so interesting that some of the movies kind of tackle, but ultimately don't fully get there on. This one does, though. And I think all of that stuff is what's really, really interesting about this movie, aside from just the breathtaking cinematography, the amazing music, and the great performances. The whole thing is really impressive. There's stuff in it that I'm not crazy for either, but overall it is just a really good, fresh interpretation of a story that I love so much and is so formative to me as a person and as an artist. So I was very pleased walking out of the theater. It's long, though.
It is long.
It's so long.
I fundamentally have a problem with any movie that's over 2 hours and 15 minutes. But that being said, really enjoyed this. Robert Pattinson does a great job. Batman's actually the only superhero that I've seen all the movies of.
Whoa.
Otherwise, I don't really watch them, except when Black Panther was on TV. I have seen that one, but I digress. This was very good. I had a good time. It's a wonderfully made movie. I too had things I was not crazy about besides the 5 hour long runtime of it.
Yeah.
But real good time, good stuff.
Yeah, it's I don't want to dive into anything negative yet because overall very positive. But I mean, I think that coming into this, well, let me back up a little bit. I work at a movie theater, so I'm seeing a bunch of people come out of the movies, and watching them come out of Batman has been sort of a mixed bag. Some of them have come out and been like, wow, that was the freshest, most interesting Batman I've ever seen. And some of them are like, you just go watch Seven. It's a better movie. And then others are just idiots, and they're like, Robert Pattinson was a sparkly vampire in Twilight.
I can't like him.
I can't like him because that's gay.
It was 10 years ago.
It's just idiots being stupid. So the reception has been sort of mixed. It did really well at the box office, though, and I'm sure it's going to continue to do so. I really appreciate that Matt Reeves is sneaking great film history into a Batman movie, and and in the same way that Quentin Tarantino does it. All of his movies are just paying homage to other movies,
Or Ryan Johnson.
or many of your favorite filmmakers,
Or least favorite.
yeah, or
For some.
yeah. But the fact that this movie does wear its influences on its sleeve, and so clearly does, is I don't think it's a negative. I think it more than anything, it sort of is a positive. And while it's wearing those movies on its sleeve, it's also just so small and so self-contained. And I was kind of jumping out of my seat a few times thinking about that. When is the movie going to turn into a superhero movie? And it really doesn't. There's a few scenes that start to feel superhero-y, but it really does work.
I think this is the best Batman movie ever.
Oh, wow. This is great.
I think
Hot
this is
takes.
I think this is the closest to perfect Batman film that has ever come out. I think Robert Pattinson is wonderful in this.
He's so good.
He's so good. Jeffrey Wright is great as Jim Gordon.
As exposition dump.
Yes. Paul Dano is great as the Riddler.
Yeah, he's great.
And Zoe Kravitz is great as Selena Kyle. I gave this a 5 out of 5.
There it is.
Immediately. I just think before this movie, I always wanted to make something with Batman. I always thought I could. I really like the Arkham games. I read the comics. The comics are super good. But I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to make a Batman thing anymore because this is everything I wanted it to be. And there are issues with it, but I think this is the closest thing to perfect. And for me, I think it is perfect in my heart because it just did everything. And I just love this movie. I think it's perfect. In the sense that it's like, for me, like all of the good stuff just outweighs anything I think about it being bad or anything.
For sure. I'm right there with you too. Yeah.
And Colin Farrell's great too. I forgot to mention
Take
that.
it easy, sweetheart.
Whoa,
Dad, why are you showing this to me?
But I think like those are like our overall thoughts. Like I think we'll jump into spoilers now.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely going to have to do spoilers on this one because
Yeah.
I want to talk about like the nitty gritty of everything.
But I mean, first, I guess we can talk about like Robert Pattinson and Batman because again, the writing in this movie is just like it. Like you said earlier, Dan, it gets like comic book Batman to a T. It's very like Long Halloween Batman, which I think is the best Batman probably. It's a film noir Batman pretty much, and it's great. And I think Robert Pattinson only plays Batman in this movie. He doesn't.
Yeah.
There's no Bruce Wayne yet, which is cool. And I think like I don't know. I always hate some of the criticism I've heard about this movie is that like Batman isn't fully in this movie because even when he's Batman, he's not like perfect. He like literally like dives off a building and then gets wrecked by like a bridge
Which
and
was
then like
great.
falls off a bus. Yeah, it was awesome. But again, it's cool because there's room to grow. Like with Batman, they want Batman in this certain light, but I just like that like this Batman is like really good at what he does, but he also like fucks up a lot, which is really good. And like I think his biggest fallacy is that like he doesn't have that alter ego yet. He's like, if I saw Batman at a funeral, if I saw Bruce Wayne at a funeral, like he goes to in this movie, I'd be like, that guy's Batman. I'd be like, that guy is rich and he's a recluse and he's clearly Batman because he's like staring at people like Batman does. And obviously like you can get around that being like, okay, like Batman's only in the shadows in this movie. But again, I like that. I like that this Bruce Wayne feels like he has room to grow. Like in the other Batman movies, I always felt like Batman / Bruce Wayne was like, he was perfect already. And even in the Arkham games, he's perfect already. And like, that's a cool Batman to have. But if you really want to like, again, they want to make like 20 billion movies of this. If you really want to make a series and something interesting and new, I think you have to make a Batman with a lot of issues. And this one has more issues than Christian Bale Batman had in 3 movies.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, it's a really clever inversion because instead of giving us a Batman origin story, they're giving us the Bruce Wayne origin story in a way.
Yeah.
Where like, even though Batman's not fully formed, you know, he's more formed than Bruce is. And that sort of is the whole arc of the movie is like him coming to realize like what Batman has to represent and what he has to do to be able to become that for people. I mean, it's the most visually, striking metaphor in the entire movie. It's like so obvious at the end when he lights the flare and he is the guiding light for the people of Gotham, you know. And it sure that's a little bit you could tell that that's what it is, but it's not a negative thing that you can tell. But yeah, that the Batman of it, I think it was just a smart choice for Reeves to be like, we're just going to do a Batman movie.
Yeah.
And we'll worry about Bruce Wayne later. Because also that's again him just understanding Batman, because that's something that fans have been saying forever. It's just like, who is the real guy here?
Yes.
Is it Bruce Wayne or is it Batman? Which one is the mask? And Pattinson's just really good at acting. He's just very good. He's just got this smoldering look. He looks intelligent. He looks damaged. He plays vulnerability really well. I will say the Bruce Wayne scenes were probably my least favorite, just because like I didn't care too much
You
for
don't like his haircut either, huh?
no. I love when he takes the mask off and he's got the mascara and he looks incredible. But I think it's because you could tell that the movie was more interested in the Batman portion. Totally. And so when they do go back to Bruce Wayne, especially early on, they have that scene where Alfred comes in and he's like, the accountants for Wayne Enterprises are going to come over in a minute. And then he's like, okay. And then we cut to the next scene when he's like, hey, have some berries for breakfast or whatever. And the accountants are about to come over. And then the lady comes in. She's like, the accountants are here. And then they just cut away from it.
Yeah. Which is not important.
No, it felt totally intentional. It felt like Matt Reeves was like, who cares about the inner workings of the Wayne Enterprises and like what he does in his daytime? Because like what's more interesting is figuring out this cipher and trying to find the serial killer.
And his voice in it is also really nice. Like everyone shit on Christian Bale. Again, it's a choice he made.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good choice for that Batman to disguise his voice, is to be like very grisly and stuff. But, similar to like old film noir, like I feel like Pattinson's Batman voice is just very like, it's kind of like an everyman voice in the sense that like it could literally be anyone talking. It's a very calm voice, which is nice.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, that fits Batman, I think, a little better than the gravelly, where's the trigger voice.
It's smart. Yeah.
I was going to say, I appreciate coming into and just like starting right off with like, this is Batman. Batman's already like a person in this universe, and not like showing us 45 minutes of him like becoming Batman and some whole backstory. Cause like we all know who Batman is at this point in like, just the cultural zeitgeist. Like we know what the Batman is. You don't need to like show us again like they do with like every first superhero movie in a series where like, this is how this person happened. He got bit by the spider and then this happened and then he fell into this thing. Like we already know. So I appreciate just like jumping in right away and being like, yeah, you know who Batman is. I don't need to hold your hand.
Yeah. And I like kind of like the, like they kind of pulled the rug from under you at the beginning when they like the Riddler's looking out at like this mansion. And there's a little boy in there dressed like a ninja. And you're like, is that going to be like Bruce Wayne? And is this Thomas Wayne? Like what's going on? And then it's really nice that it's not. And then it's really nice that like Paul Dano's just in that apartment too. That was sick. But again, it doesn't do any of the origin stuff, which is just, again, refreshing, but it still like gets it out of the way in a way. Like something I really liked that was subtle was, I like that Martha is part of the Arkhams in this universe.
Yeah, that was cool.
Because it just like, it really grounds like the Waynes and Bruce Wayne in general into like everything going on in Gotham. It's like, he's literally like the prince. Like he's like a part of the two biggest families in Gotham ever. And that's really cool. And it also like makes you believe that this man would dress up as a bat because his family does have history of like mental illness, which is interesting.
It's the most believable Batman that we've ever had. That's a big part of it too. And I was listening to a podcast on the Ringer podcast network just earlier, and they were talking about how like Christian Bale's Batman, as much as I love him, it's sort of is a strange contrast to have him be this like playboy that's like genuinely having a lot of fun, like being that guy, and then becoming Batman. He didn't have like a whole lot of rage, and those two things, they can coexist, but like that's more of like the Tony Stark thing. It's like he's always the rich playboy, even when he's in the Iron Man suit, But like with the Christian Bale Batman, it was these two kind of different people in many ways, whereas this is like, oh yeah, no, that Bruce Wayne guy, that's Batman, like you said earlier, because like, he's just a weirdo. And there are several scenes that are sort of unintentionally a little bit funny, like not to the point where it was distracting or took me out of the movie, but just like anytime a cop is like, what are we doing here? Like,
I mean, that's the first moment in the film that I was like, okay, this isn't going to have any comedy, because Batman like walks into the crime scene and when the cops like looks at him like kind of funny. And then in like any Marvel movie, it would cut back to the cop and he'd go like, okay, that's a weird
this guy.
That's a weird uniform.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Something like that.
Nice costume.
Yeah, just like just something, and then he doesn't. He's just like, holy shit.
Yeah, everyone looks at him like that's a part of it too. Why it's like such a believable Batman is everybody looks at him like it's a man dressed as a bat, like it's a man in a Halloween costume. Every single character looks at him like that, and they acknowledge how weird it is. And the way that like Pattinson also, like his physical performance as Batman is very unique in that it's like he's very slow and he's very methodical, and he just sort of seems like a weirdo. Like he just is that weird kid.
He's probably slow because he's tired. He doesn't sleep.
He doesn't sleep.
He goes back home and watches his night over again.
And that was also smart because like that's why he's just like looking at stuff and then turning and not saying anything. He's just the staring makes sense because he has to go back and watch it again. He has to get the details and stuff. So everything like about the Batman of it like really is great. Like I said, the Bruce Wayne scenes didn't totally work for me just because I didn't love much of what was going on with Alfred in this movie either. I just didn't think that he kind of Andy Serkis got the short end of the stick. I think in some scenes Jeffrey Wright also did, just sort of having to do exposition and like play the side character as opposed to a character to themselves. But yeah, I mean, just like probably the best like Batman.
Definitely the best Batman. And I think that like leads into Bruce Wayne too, because I feel like this is a good starting place for him. And like as a movie itself, like there's no point to introduce the Playboy aspect because like Gotham is also the worst city of all time.
Sucks.
I said that when we were in the car. I'm like, why would anyone want to live in this city? This place is horrible.
Like the central square of it is like you know, it's very New York-y, but the thing is like it's like worse because there's more monitors somehow. And like also at the end of this movie, like it's completely flooded, which is like great, I think, because like it's that thing where it's like this is really like gritty and like kind of real, but there are comic book aspects to it. Like there's no way an entire city would be under like halfway underwater.
Actually, that kind of segues a little bit because we could go back to this in a second, but just like there's also like a political campaign that's going on, which the movie like intermittently becomes more interested in and then just like leaves behind. And like there's that scene at the funeral, which I want to talk about the funeral scene extensively later.
Yeah,
but
totally.
When the soon to become new mayor is like, hey, you're not doing much for your city. Your parents were philanthropists. Mm-hmm. What's up with that? And so, yeah, so the movie, like it's trying to ground itself like within like a realistic like political setting, a realistic like a supervillain setting, a realistic Batman. You know, it's trying to do all this stuff that's very realistic, but also at the end of the day, it knows its limitations, or not limitations, but it knows what sandbox it's playing in, and it allows itself to elevate over to like the superhero genre whenever it needs to, even though it is like Seven or you know any of these other like 90s crime movies.
But yeah, this is kind of interesting too, because like, correct me if you don't feel this way, but I feel like the Nolan verse for Batman, I can't picture certain villains in that, but in this universe, I can picture like every villain.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah,
like in some way.
Because you know, I've been using the word grounded, and everyone has been using the word grounded for this new Batman movie, but like, it's like visually so much more elevated. It feels like, you know, an artist's rendition of a Batman comic book. And so because of that, like you can buy any variation of the villains in this universe. They might not all look as like DIY as Riddler, but they could fit in there. Like I could see Clayface in this universe. Yeah. Even if they don't make him literally a man of clay, you know, like, but in the Nolan universe, yeah, it's pretty much limited to dudes who don't have any powers.
Yeah. And I think you're right when you touch on the cinematography, because the cinematography, though, like incredible and beautiful, it is a hyper realized world. It's not like, it's not like real. Like the Nolan, like every Nolan movie looks just like, I don't know. He has like a lot of gray palettes in it.
And great palettes, and there's a lot of light.
Exactly. And it looks like real. This is like dark film noir. Mm-hmm. And I think that elevates it to the extent that it's like, yeah, these crazy villains would work, even if they're not like DIY like Riddler. But yeah, I'm very excited to see where they go, because they had like 4 villains in this one, 4 classic villains, and they need a new DA too. So
yeah, that's true.
Maybe another one coming in next movie.
And before we talk about these villains real quick, I just maybe at the end we'll also come back and talk about like what we want in the future. This is gonna go on forever.
This is gonna be very long.
This is great. But Reeves has been talking about how he wants to do like Court of Owls, and he wants to do Freeze in future movies. And to your point about how like Like, I cannot see Mr. Freeze possibly working in the Nolanverse.
No.
That's impossible.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see something like that in this universe. And then also the way that Matt Reeves has been talking about his envisionment of the Joker going forward, where it's like, it's just a guy who has this physical tick sort of thing that makes him laugh all the time, just like the man
Tourette's
who laughs. And what? Keep it. But yeah, it's just like a man who he's alabaster skin, and he puts on some face paint, and he just has this congenital like smiling thing. And you could do that with Freeze also, you know. It could just be a guy who, like, I don't know, he didn't have to fall into a vat of ice cold water. I don't remember what happened.
I think that's literally what happens in Batman and Robin. I remember remember in that movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger plays a doctor.
Yes, that's so true.
Falls into a vat of air conditioning coolant.
No. I remember it was kind of cool though. I'd be down to see Mr. Freeze again.
But they do, in some ways, they also allow for some of that weirdness to exist also, because when Batman like shoots himself in the leg with what looks like almost fear gas toxin, you know, like a scarecrow fear toxin, and then it's just like instant rage boils through his body.
Well, you know what it could be too.
Oh, pray tell.
It could be like Venom, like what Bane uses.
It's just pure adrenaline,
and he creates his villains. So.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and that was awesome. Can I also say, sorry, this is like kind of on Batman before I forget.
Sure.
It is so cool that they made a mask that, like, sometimes when he looks forward, it doesn't look like he has a nose. It's like it's just like the comic books. It's like awesome. It's like when you draw Batman and you're like, I don't have to give him a nose because there's the cowl just makes the nose.
Right.
And I thought it was just very subtly done. I think this is also the best Batman costume.
Yeah, let's talk about the costume real quick, just since we're on it, because he has no cool gadgets, you know, not really. Like he's able to like when he has to leave the police station, he's able to fly down. But that's like the most basic, just like that stuff exists in real life. Those are just I don't know what they're called, but you know, those dudes that fly down cliffs like that.
Yeah, right. Cliff divers.
Cliff divers, cliff flyers. He's got that, and he's got the bat piece that comes out of the chest, which is just basically a knife, a batarang. And then he's got the grappling gun, and he's got the thing on his right arm, which I don't know what that really is. I think it looks like it shoots something. Yeah, but love. And that's shoots love right to Catwoman's heart. But he's pretty much got like no gadgets. Like it's all like, it seems functional and believable. Yeah. Sometimes when he's just got like a little go bag, I am like, you fit the whole costume in there. Like,
right. Like, he vacuum sealed it.
Yeah, he's vacuum sealed. But the costume is it allows for him the flexibility for him to perform much more than any of the other Batmans. It also allows, like I said, it's in this sort of realistic vein where you can buy it. The one thing that is like super cool, but also deeply unrealistic, is just how bulletproof it is. But that leads to one of the coolest scenes when like they're just firing at him in a completely lightless room, and it's just bullets raining on his chest, and he's just walking straight towards them, nothing. And that's like super cool.
And horrifying
and scary, but yeah, the costume is really cool.
Good costume,
and like they extend that to all the villains and heroes. Like Jim Gordon has like his basic costume, and and like Selina's costume's like very slick, and like she has like the cat like burglar type of mask on it, but also like you could see her one day maybe having like the full Catwoman suit. Paul Dano's is like pretty amazing, very like Zodiac. Yeah, exactly. Zodiac.
It's Zodiac.
He is Zodiac. He's the Zodiac killer. Paul Dano is the Zodiac killer.
Probably.
That's let's talk about the villains and stuff. Because we'll talk Riddler first. He's great in the movie.
Yes.
I love that he takes some big swings.
He does.
Very big swings.
Especially towards the end.
While I was watching it, I was like, okay, you only get a couple scenes where you actually get to like show your face. So like, of course they're going to let you go for it. And I respect the hell out of that. But the costume, the glasses, the ciphers, the murders, the way the question marks, even the Riddler sign even looks like the Zodiac sign, because it's not just the question mark, it's also like the little things around the question mark. but even more than that, Paul Dano just looks like the photo
casting.
He looks like the police sketch of the Zodiac
it's
killer.
perfect casting for like a Zodiac killer, but it's also perfect. He looks like the Riddler from the comics too.
Yeah.
It's like, and they do it. He has like ginger hair and like glasses and all that stuff. And I think the best part about his performance / like just every aspect of it, is that he might not like be as silly as Riddlers we've seen from the past. Cause like, again, he's called the Riddler. That's an absurd name.
So silly. Yeah.
So dumb, but awesome. He makes riddles and that's his thing for some reason. But it's really good because like, also he's Riddler in the sense that whenever Riddler's right, he like loves it and he's right a lot of the times. But when Batman like thwarts him in some way, he like loses it and he like loses control. And like, that's what makes the Riddler. And I think in the interrogation scene they get, you really see that because and this is the best part, one of the best parts of the movie. It's like, he thinks him and Batman are on the same side.
Yeah.
Like they're friends.
It's more or less like he's just like giving like riddles to Batman to figure out, and then he just thinks they're helping each other for some reason.
Yeah, he's completing because he says it. He's like, I've got the brains, but I don't have the brawn, basically. Yeah. And you could enact all this stuff. You brought him into the light.
Yeah, exactly.
You brought Falcone, as they call him in this movie, as opposed to Falcone. Mileage may vary on that, but
I'm sure Colin Farrell would call him Falcone.
Yeah, probably.
Falcone.
Hey,
we'll talk about it.
But and also like to that point as well, like when he is when he confronts Batman about like the great big plan and he hasn't figured it out yet, and he's so upset, and then Batman's like, no, you're a scumbag, like we're not the same. Yeah. And then he freaks out. He is whiny, and like I'm sure that there's gonna be some people that walk out of the theater and they're like, oh, it was whiny, because that's always like a thing that you hear about constantly. Just like why is
this character like whiny? Yeah, kind of. It's like, well, it's because he's sad.
Yeah, why is Kylo Ren whiny? It's like, because he's a child at heart, and that's the same thing. And that's what I love about the orphanage portion of this, the Riddler thing, because like
probably the smartest like thing they don't talk about, and they did. Like,
right. He is an orphan.
He's a foil. He's a foil to Batman. It's brilliant.
And I was really nervous that they were going to make them like brothers.
And that'd be weird.
That would have been so stupid.
Yeah, my mother, Martha Arkham.
How do you know that name?
How do you know that name?
I will say, he was very good. It was sometimes a little too much for me, like bordering on like kind of campy, but I think that's kind of like what the character is. So it made like I was okay with it, even though it was a little too much. I will also say he looks like someone who would follow a lady home at night and then, kill her.
Yes. Yeah. It looks like he would, you know what he looks like actually? He looks like a guy who would like hang out with a dead body for like a week.
And like, never mind.
And then like try to get back to his wife. And then at the end, it's revealed that his wife is just someone he's been stalking and not actually his wife. And I know that because that's the movie Swiss Army Man.
Yeah.
And Paul Dano is in that movie. And he does all of that.
Got a foot fetish.
Yeah. But the thing is, kind of on that, it's like, yes, it's over the top at the end, but like I think that's why I think any villain can work in this.
Yeah.
It's because there's a performance like that, and there's a character that's written like that's it just adds to it, where it's like, yes, there is this campy aspect to it, but it's also grounded. And it's like, again, it's like perfect. I want to say it's like 80s or 90s Batman. Like whenever like The Killing Joke was coming out and like stuff like that, it's like that hardcore Batman that's like, it's still weird and campy, but it's also serious. And it's like, and it's really great. It's like the perfect Batman. It's also the Arkham games.
Yeah, and I think a perfect example of that, which you're describing, the element of camp and the element of is the funeral scene.
Yeah.
And when he's on the phone and he's like giving the riddles, and he has got so much glee. And and the first one he gets right, he's like, it was justice was the first answer. Yeah. And he's like, yes, it's very good. Now the second riddle, he's like having fun and his voice is getting high pitched. And again, to that point that we were just making moments ago, like he was an orphan, so he's carrying this childhood trauma with him throughout his entire life. And so he is a child still. So when he's whining and when he's screaming and getting all filled with glee on these riddles and stuff, it's because he's still a child at heart. And that's the same thing with Batman in this movie. He's enacting this violence onto petty criminals, the same kind of petty criminals that killed his parents, and he's trying to deal with that childhood trauma. And so,
well, it also doesn't seem so petty like once the twist is revealed.
Right. But
which is a bummer, I think. Well, it's good and bad.
Sure, yeah.
We'll talk about it.
But yeah, the funeral scene I'd love to just talk about, because I think this is one of my favorites, like, sequences of a Batman movie ever.
Can I say one thing though before, just
Absolutely.
like on the Riddler real fast? Not on this podcast. You know how it was big in the trailers, but he gives himself up, and he does it by like just walking to a coffee shop, and everyone's been saying like, did the barista make a question mark in his cappuccino or whatever? That's what people have been saying in some reviews I've listened to / read. And did they not watch the movie? He's doing it himself.
Yeah, what kind of stupid idiots are these?
It's like, yeah, just say that dumb joke. Why don't you? It's like, no, obviously he did it himself. Also, that's not how barista art works.
No.
They don't like.
No, they pour it.
Yeah, they pour it.
It's also funny to me, like the things people online hone in on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where they're like, yeah, what's going on there?
Especially with a 3-hour-long movie.
Yeah.
Dude, there's so many things you could hone in on.
It gives you like all the answers to so many of these things, and all you have to do is watch it. And like, you sat there for 3 hours and you watched it. So how did you not, even with 3 hours of like meandering shots, there's no reason that shot had to be as long. There's no reason we had to have that shot of the coffee cup at all.
But it was
like,
sick.
It's sick. It's beautiful. It's cool. It's part of his playfulness, you know? So yeah,
Because he's a kid at heart.
Yeah, he's a child. He's just playing with his food.
Kids shouldn't be drinking coffee.
That's a
stunt
great
his
point.
growth.
It looks like he didn't drink any of it.
You make a
Well,
good point.
yeah.
I stand corrected.
How'd he pay for that? What's his job? Oh,
Kids don't have jobs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's an accountant.
Come on.
But also not named Edward Nigma. Nashton. Yeah, love that.
Which, yeah, why not? It's just like,
who gives a shit? Yeah, like, but yeah, with the funeral scene, that's the best Bruce Wayne scene, because it's him being a weirdo staring at a child. It's this beautiful music playing. They set it up so well. When he walks in, he looks up at the balcony, and then he keeps going. He has the conversation with the future mayor, and then the kid, and then he looks back up, and everybody's clearing out as the car is about to come in, and he just sees
so
Riddler.
cool.
And he has this moment of like realization and fear on his face, and he sees the car, he runs, grabs it, and saves the kid. And one, I just love the relationship he has with that kid throughout the movie. It's really sweet, and that is showing the pearls dropping. You know, that's
so easy. Yeah,
and it's smarter, and it's a more elevated way of doing that. But then the car crashes through, and it's like, oh my god, it's him.
Yeah. They're like, fucking shoot him.
He's like, no.
And I love someone being like, he has a bomb. Like someone like yells that.
There's a bomb attached to his neck.
Okay, cool.
They
thanks.
clear the whole thing out, and then the little
Was that phone ringing the whole time?
Yes.
Oh,
That's a
probably.
long time for a phone to ring.
Very good point.
Hours.
I will talk to Matt about it.
Yeah, I got a problem with that. That ruins the movie for me.
It probably rang for as long as the movie, probably.
Maybe longer.
Yeah.
'Cause it was nighttime by the time they
But
got there.
I was thinking, funerals like maybe 1 or 2.
You know,
Who knows?
Yeah,
And it seems like Gotham's always dark.
But then
Gotham's a
Batman
shit
shows
city.
up.
Batman shows up. Yeah.
Batman shows up, and then they play the game, and then his head explodes.
Yeah, Peter Sarsgaard is so good.
Oh, he's
It's the
amazing
part.
in this movie. It's especially when he's like high and drunk at the nightclub too, and it was like a believable high and drunk, and he's just like hitting on Selena Kyle.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like, I adored that scene, that entire sequence rather, because it's like perfect Bruce Wayne stuff, and then it's perfect like Riddler Batman stuff, and it all feels like really tense, and it's beautifully shot, and just everything I want out of it, like a Batman scene between these two characters.
Yeah, definitely. And the riddles were fun, and also Peter Sarsgaard's head explodes at the end.
How did Batman's head not explode? He was standing right
he was
there.
like right there. He definitely like it knocked him down.
He was unconscious.
and
He
it
woke
kinda-
up in a police station.
It kind of goes into one of my favorite scenes.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's in the police station, and there's like, I love that there's so many cops.
Too
in that
many
room.
for that room.
No,
Yeah.
the
The whole
whole
precinct is there.
But again, that like we're coming back to this thing, but it's like it's it's just like a hyperbolic world, and it's just like in the comic panel there'd be like 30 cops in like this splash page of like Batman waking up, and it's so like there's no reason 30 cops need to be
I
in
mean,
that
you
room.
don't want to be like the one cop though who like didn't see Batman wake
exactly
up.
Everyone's like definitely in that room being like, we're gonna take this guy's mask off.
Phone's ringing, and
then Jim Gordon,
someone's like, oh, I'll have to wait.
Jim Gordon in that scene's also really funny because like Batman like keeps assaulting cops. He like keeps just punching them, and then someone's like, that's assault on a police officer.
Yeah, and
and Jim's like, no, stop.
He's like, I got you for assaulting a police officer. You got me for 3.
yeah.
Just like there's a couple of good quips in there for Batman.
A couple of sarcastic.
And then right after that too, when they clear the room and Gordon's like, you're gonna punch me in the face, and then you're gonna run out the hallway. It's gonna lead you upstairs.
See, that's just like a fun acting moment for both of those characters, I think. And it's like a relationship. I feel like we don't see that with Jim and Batman so much, because I feel like the one time we've actually gotten like in live action a good Jim Batman relationship was probably like the Nolan trilogy. Like definitely again, Jim Gordon wasn't really a character in any other live action thing besides the Dark Knight trilogy, but like with that trilogy it's always like so, I don't know, it's so serious, and like it's serious in this one too, but again it feels fun because they're legitimately like partners in this.
It feels more like Batman Begins when Gordon gets into the tumbler, you know, and he's like firing. Yeah, and he's like super. Yeah, it's more in that vein where like he is the sidekick. This universe doesn't have a Robin, at least yet, but like Gordon gets to be like that sort of in some ways, you know, like that's your sidekick, you know, the buddy cops in some way. And like, it's a cute scene actually, because they've been working together for 2 years now. Yeah. And like he remarks on the fact that I still don't know who you are or anything about you, but he trusts him implicitly, and we keep seeing why he trusts him. It's not just him saying, I trust you. It's like, okay, yeah, he's really good at this. He's a great detective.
Mm-hmm. And I think it also helps that like there's no Bruce Wayne and Jim Gordon scenes, because in the Nolan trilogy, not to harp on it too much, but it's just like there seemed to be a lot of like Bruce Wayne and Jim Gordon scenes in that trilogy, if I recall, that I feel like just kind of took away from the relationship, because again, Jim Gordon just doesn't really talk to Bruce Wayne, and that's nice. I did really like Jim Gordon in this movie. Jeffrey Wright does like and again, perfect casting. It's like
really good casting. I do think, like I said, he gets the short end of the stick a little bit in this one, because he has to just do explaining constantly. Like Batman's reading a clue, and then he's like, "Oh my God, that's what that means."
He's like, "What does it mean?"
This letter has your name on it.
Is this from someone you know? Dolores.
Yeah, no, he definitely throughout the movie's like, okay, and then what's next?
Especially when at that funeral scene, I forget the character's name that Skarsgård plays, but he's like, oh my God, it's him.
He's like, that's the DA agent. Like, that's the DEA right there. Like, this.
But
Christ. I think he says Christ a lot. Yeah. Christ. But it's great. It's good.
Yeah. No, he's really good at it too, and that's why you cast Jeffrey Wright in this role, is because like some actors can make it believable and some actors just can't. I could not do that. Yeah. Not that I'm an actor or anything, but like, you know, like
you are. You were in.
I was in One Man Two Countries. Let's cut to a clip. No, but like that's Dolores. Like that's the most. Honestly, I feel like that might be the most difficult acting that there is the stuff that like. Because there's not like a ton of character there. Yeah. There's not a ton of meat on the bone in this movie. There's opportunity there.
You don't get a scene where Jim goes back home to his wife and kids.
Right, which was
she's got a pot roast on the table.
Which was a big part of The Dark Knight, and why like, the ending of The Dark Knight is so good is because like his family's compromised.
What does this riddle mean? Dolores.
What does it mean?
Dolores Gordon.
Yeah, Dolores Gordon.
Dude, hashtag Dolores Gordon.
Let's make it happen, Matt Reeves.
Who are you going to cast as Dolores Gordon?
Evan Rachel Wood.
Yeah, beautiful.
Dolores.
No, but I do like their dynamic, but I've the dynamic that is the best in this movie is obviously the one between Batman and Catwoman. Pattinson and Kravitz, and that's me segueing.
Wow,
she's so good in this movie.
She's Catwoman.
She's the best Catwoman.
There was never a moment I was like, that's not Selena Kyle. No. I was like, yeah.
There's just like a bunch of different versions of this character, and this is the one that I feel like they gave the most like agency to within the story, and they also gave the most like sort of compelling reason to be a villain. even though she never actually breaks bad in this movie.
I feel like it's a perfect representation of Catwoman because she's not really a villain. She's like more of an anti-hero type of deal. I don't really love that term, but I think it is very much Catwoman just in general, because like it's just like her and Batman are like, again, they're another like example of like foils to each other, but Catwoman just takes it a little further.
Right.
And again, I think it really works. And like, again, a lot of people like hate the lines she says, some of the lines she says in these movies. And I think that's just like some
people just hate
bullshit.
Women.
That's so
Like,
true. That's not true.
But it's
that's
like,
what
she's like an extreme version of Batman. So it's like, yeah, of course she'd be like, let's kill these rich people. It's like, yeah, let's eat them. It's like,
Yeah.
let's make them catnip.
Let's
And I also like the subtle stuff they did with her, where it's like, again, I would roll my eyes if they like discussed it more, but like when after like her apartment is just like ransacked and they come back, she just like gets like some milk and she's just drinking milk. I'm like, yeah, that's like a subtle like,
because cats drink milk.
yeah, because cats drink, yes, but I've never fed my cats milk, so like think about that.
But
like I've never actually fed a cat milk, so is that
Lactose
really a cat
intolerant.
thing?
think about that. But there's a lot of like subtle performance moments in the movie also that I think are just really strong. And she gets to have like the campy, silly dialogue as well, and like she sells it so well.
She does, yeah.
The Bat and the Cat has a nice ring to it. Like that's like straight out of like the Nolan movies or like the Burton movies, any of the movies, but like it still like feels like real.
It's grounded.
It's
And her fighting style is so cool.
Yes. Yeah. Her fighting style is really, really good. And in this one, I was equally, the whole time it's Selena Kyle.
Yeah.
You know, Catwoman is like just a name, you know, and I think they're kind of starting doing that with Penguin also. Like it's not, it's this guy Oz.
Yeah, they call him the Penguin. That's like his nickname.
Yeah, it's this guy Oz, you know, and like he's Oz throughout.
The name's Oz.
Right, Oswald Cobblepot. But like Selena Kyle is Selena Kyle through and through, and she just because she wears like a little cat burglar mask, doesn't change her. She doesn't like her persona is consistent throughout. Like as opposed to Batman, who's like trying to become something as Batman, she's just dressing up and doing her thing.
Yeah,
as
she has a goal in this movie, and it's like very clear.
I like that she's invested like in the story too, because it feels like sometimes they have like these like side characters who are just like kind of along for the ride, but like she has a reason to like be there and like want things in the movie.
Every character has a reason too. I was like worried. I mean, that's why that's why Spider-Man 3 feels so disjointed, because like there's 3 villains, but all of the villains have different, like none of them really like combine into something, like not into one mega villain, but they don't like it just doesn't feel like they're all part of the story. It feels like Sam Raimi wanted to do Sandman, everyone else wanted Venom, and they already set up Hobgoblin or not Hobgoblin, but New Goblin, so they had to do New Goblin. And it's just like there's just too much shit there. But like in this one, it very much seemed like every villain that's in it is integral to the story, and if you take one out, you're gonna have to take out like an hour and a half of the movie.
Right, and
it's like a puzzle.
Yeah, it's like a riddle.
A riddle. Riddle me this.
I will say though, I kind of wish that with Catwoman they allowed her to end up killing Carmine.
Yeah, her father, yeah.
Just because like, there was a few moments in the movie where I was like, there's technically like a redundancy. Like the first cop that hates Batman ends up dying, and then there's a second cop that comes in that hates Batman. And like we could have just done with one of them.
Yeah.
And the same thing with like Penguin and Falcone in this movie. It's like, I get what they're doing. They're building up so that he can then take over. I understand what they're doing. But like in many ways, like if you didn't have the Penguin in this movie and you just replaced all of his scenes with Falcone, I feel like it might actually strengthen that one character, just because then there's more screen time for the one character. But then in a similar vein, just like I kind of wish that they allowed her to actually kill him because he ends up dying.
Yes, because
it doesn't work for the Riddler portion of it though, and that's why they don't. But again, it's just one of those things. Like I do wish they made her a little bit closer to a villain.
And I think it would have set her and Batman like at odds. You know? Yeah, it's like she crossed that line and he's not gonna, but like she's still gonna do it, and he's still gonna be like, all right, well you're. Like I guess we're a thing. And it was, well, I mean, one of the best shots of the movie is at the end when they're like riding their motorcycles.
That was so
like,
cute, like straight out of a movie from the 70s.
Yeah, I was like, this is great. This is like a great way to end this movie.
Yeah,
like,
that was so surprising.
Yeah, and again, I think what's really good too is her relationship with Carmine Falcone in this movie. And John Turturro, we haven't talked about him at all, but like he's great. He's like not marketed at all, and like he's honestly a perfect Carmine. Like
he's a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun. He's always wearing glasses. He like never doesn't wear glasses, and it is kind of a bummer he dies. Like I'm like, and I get what they're doing because like obviously like they're keeping the Riddler alive, the Penguin's still around, so is Cat. Like all of these villains are just as integral to the story in the future installments as Batman's going to be, which is great, which is like the reason you create a Batman universe. Like that's the biggest problem I think with like the other Batman movies, and why I like this one so much is that like all the villains are still around because that's how it is.
Right.
Like it's years and years of Batman and Gotham and like the villains escaping, like all this stuff. And I'm just really excited to see where they go. And like, again, like Catwoman is one of those reasons, but also so was Carmine. But again, I think there's like now a power vacuum, and like I'm kind of glad they have like Maroni and Falcone out, because like they're fun villains in like Batman lore, but they're always just kind of like just bland like thugs at the end of the day. And
they're mobsters.
Yeah, they're mobsters, exactly.
And they're great chapter 1 villains.
Yes.
I think, I was going to insert this at some point in the conversation, but I remember very vividly, like there was one night that you, me, and Ian were hanging out all at Ian's house, and we were just pitching ideas for like an HBO series Batman.
Yes.
And this is why I was saying like Matt Reeves just gets like what the fans get, because we pitched basically the same sort of thing. It's like, all right, we start year 2. He's already in it. We don't have to do the origin story. We have the full rogues gallery. Like they cycle through. It's not just like, okay, one guy for a season. Yeah. And I love that. I love exactly what you're talking about. It's like, yeah, these characters are going to exist in this universe for the trilogy or for however many movies they do. And that was one of the weird things about the Nolan movies, was how like singular each one was. The only overarching like villain was the Scarecrow, but he was also just sort of like a bit part in the other two.
Yeah.
And obviously Heath Ledger couldn't be in The Dark Knight Rises. There was going to be a scene where he like popped his head out for a second, but even that is not like a significant thing. Like I like the idea that in the next movie, Riddler can be a part of the thing, even though he's not the main villain. And
my favorite part about Batman villains in general is that like they never like, they don't have like a Sinister Six. They don't like have a team or anything that like you can build to, because like none of them want the same things. Like that's what made Arkham City, like I think Arkham City is like the definitive Batman story, just because his whole rogues gallery like just like has the city divided into like their own part. And I think honestly you can't, with how shitty this Gotham is, you could definitely like do something like that. And again, there's no point to do it because Arkham City did it already. But like that is just such a smart way of being like, all right, like they're like the new plan to like, it's so comic booky, but it's like the new plan to like get rid of these villains and put them in prison or an asylum is to make the entire city the asylum and just let them like fuck around in it. And it's like, okay, cool. That's awesome. And I would love to see that in live action, but I guess we've seen it in Arkham City, so we don't need to. But I could also see that happening in this universe, especially with half the city being flooded.
Yeah.
It's like,
they're rebuilding.
Like, because they're like, fuck it. Like, let's go on the good half. And then the asylum goes to like the bad half that's flooded. Like,
actually, I do think that's a great avenue for them to explore. Cause it's like, all right, we're going to rebuild the city, but like, what doesn't get rebuilt is sort of in line with where they were trying to go with like the political aspects of this movie as well. It's like the whole like renewal, like at the end of the movie, it's like we have to restore our faith in our institutions, and like some of the stuff that they're setting up, trying to say, but also not really trying to say. And so like, yeah, I can imagine them rebuilding it, but we'll talk later about future stuff. But let's talk about Penguin a little bit, just because we're sort of on him. We were talking about camp earlier, and I love Colin Farrell as an actor. I think he's so great. In this movie, though, I still love him. He's great.
Yeah. But in this movie, you don't know. I still don't think it's Colin Farrell.
In a way that's like actually real, like, 'cause we always hear the words like transformative performance, you know, but
Like,
in this
no,
one,
he looks the same.
in this one,
He
it's
just
like,
put on 25 pounds.
Or lost, yeah.
in this one, it's like he looks different. He sounds different. He's insane.
He doesn't have mannerisms that are Colin Farrell. Like,
Right.
He's this fat Italian guy now.
Yeah. And it's weird too, because like Colin Farrell is an actor of such high caliber and quality that you would think that he would be like leading this movie.
Yeah.
And so when he's only in this movie like for bits and pieces and he's like a henchman, it's like, oh man, like why would Colin Farrell sign up for this? And then by the end of the movie, it's like, oh yeah, he's gonna be a whole big piece of this. And you hear about the Gotham TV show that he's gonna be heading, and like, yeah, so like he's in it for the long haul on this one.
Yeah, and I'm glad it's a new interpretation of Penguin too. He's like not like Cockney like he is in the Arkham games, and he's not as disgusting.
Yeah,
and again, I think Danny DeVito's Penguin is great.
Yeah, iconic.
A lot of people don't like him, but it's just like, no, this is like, that is Tim Burton's Penguin, like it's through and through. Like that shit is insane, and this is still an insane Penguin. But also it's like he is just as smart as Batman. Like it was so refreshing to see that one scene after this great car chase. I got you. Oh, yeah, I'm falling. Oh, that shot was, I think that's my favorite shot of the movie, when he's falling in the car and the car's it's holding on him. Mm-hmm. Like the camera's just like frozen onto him, and then everything's moving. It's like, it's great. And then again, he solves a riddle that neither Gordon or Batman can solve. And then they just leave him tied up, which is like kind of fucked.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Just like, damn.
How'd he get untied?
He just
walked. He probably walked.
He waddled. He kind of was waddling.
That was good.
That was good. I see that shit is like Matt Reeves gets it, you know, and like nothing's like by mistake in it. Also like fucking maybe they'll do the bottle cap thing they did in art. Like again, I just can see, this is so heavily inspired by the Arkham games that like, I'm okay with them taking shit like that. Like, I'll say this, I guess, because like in the Arkham, I keep bringing the Arkham games up, but like
they're so good.
It's literally this like, it's like a Long Halloween, the Arkham games, and like one other thing, like kind of the Nolan trilogy that like it's gaining inspiration from, but mostly the Arkham games, I think, especially the suit. But in the Arkham games, Penguin, instead of having like a monocle like he does in like the comics or the TV shows and stuff, he has like a bottle cap that someone like clearly like shoved into his eye and it's like stuck. And again, I think it's like a good way to do that, but like they can like do something new with that too, I think. But yeah, no, Colin Farrell again disappears. This is a Penguin I want to see like all of. Like after Batman Returns, I was like, I never want to see that guy again. It's like good what happened here, and I had fun, but like, yeah, I want to see this Penguin again. And again, like you said, he's gonna have like a huge role in the future, and it's just like every time he was on screen, you wanted more.
Yeah, he's a ton of fun. I think the most interesting choice is to have him have that accent instead of like a Cockney accent. Yeah. Because
his name is Oswald Cobblepot.
Right. Yeah, we'll have to figure that one out. Yeah.
I guess did they say his name? He says
just Oz.
Just Oz. I think he's credited as Oz / the Penguin. So
yeah.
Maybe his name's like Osden Kutcher.
Hell yeah, dude.
Hell yeah. No, but like, yeah, maybe his name's like Oz.
Oscar Isaac.
Oz New Yorker.
Uh-huh. Oz New York, eh?
Gotham.
What are you showing me this for?
I guess he's doing a Gotham accent. That's what my buddy said. And I was like, shit, you're right.
That's
it
funny.
Is a Gotham accent. Why are you doing this to me?
Yeah, he's really good. We talked about Riddler, we talked about Catwoman, we talked about Carmine. I love like all the assortment of weirdos that are out in the street, like especially in that first the introduction of Batman. When he goes and beats up those dudes that are trying to beat up that one other guy off the train. Like I just love the makeup and the half makeup for the one who's like not fully initiated yet. And it just like all that sort of stuff.
That's
like
gonna be Jason Todd.
Whoa!
No, that's what they would say.
That's whatever.
Don't have Robin.
The one that I was like sort of we could talk about that last scene with Riddler and Joker.
Yeah.
Just of what we could see of young Barry in there.
Yes, Keon.
Looked a little weird.
Very.
It's not going to be what he looks like in the next movie, I guarantee it. Because if he is putting on face paint.
Because I don't think anyone liked it.
The laugh was great.
Yes. Laugh was good.
Laugh was,
stuff on the laugh.
Laugh was great. Some of the lines, it was just like, oh, he's just like talking. He just has an American accent and he's just talking.
I was about to say, I kind of, to contrast the Penguin, which they're doing an American accent for, I think you give Barry Keoghan the just let him off leash. Just like have him have his normal accent. I think it's fine to have a Joker with like a foreign accent.
As a matter of fact, I think it would be really great for him to have that like Dublin accent that he has.
Friend and I were talking about this the other day. He could also have just multiple accents, which would be fun and a good way to be like Matt Reeves' rendition of like, this is Joker's origin being a bunch of different things, but you don't have to like say it like Heath Ledger's Joker does, you know? You can just like do it subtly with like just him doing a bunch of accents. Because does he have his normal accent in Killing of a Sacred Deer, or is it American?
I still haven't seen it.
I still haven't seen it too. I'm gonna watch it soon because Colin Farrell's in that too.
Yeah, so we'll have to watch that. But like aside from the performance piece of it, the scene itself was like, I heard someone describe it as like the one moment where the movie sold itself out and like decided to be like this bigger universe superhero moment where like, and it does feel like that very much. I like that those two can exist in the same universe and they can be sort of buddy on a future movie. But like, that scene was a little jarring, especially coming at the end.
I'm sure you've heard of the original scene. They were going to have two Joker scenes actually originally. And
tell the audience at home.
Yeah, the first one was going to be like,
because I don't know.
Yeah, the first one was going to be like a Hannibal Lecter type of scene, where like, you know, like Batman goes to Arkham Asylum and he just talks to Joker about like Riddler, it like sets them up as like their relationship, like they've already met. They have this relationship where like Batman can be like the bigger man and be like, I need your help because like I don't know what the fuck's going on here.
Good decision to cut it.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too, just because I just don't think you need the Joker at all in this movie.
Did the mass shooting element feel weird to you guys at all?
Yeah, I didn't like it.
That was there's only two things I didn't really like in this movie, and it was like the Joker scene, and then segues perfectly. I didn't like that whole like the 5-ish minutes. There's like 5 minutes where it just gets crazy and not a good way. And it's the shooting sequence. Yeah. Where there's like 10 Riddlers. They all have like guns. They all look like Riddler. It's just like that. Like, it's just like, it looks like QAnon people that just like made whatever they had. But like, it's just weird that they looked exactly like Paul Dano's Riddler.
It felt like them having it felt like a bit of a hat on a hat to me, because like I felt like they already had like this other problem with like the city's flooded and Madison Square Garden's flooded now, and then they're like, oh, also mass shooting inside.
It literally just could have been that. I think
because then Batman could just go around and save people.
Yeah, and I think what also, but the thing is, the reason you do need that scene, like the reason I know I know why they didn't cut it, was because like there's that moment at the end where he unmasks one of the Riddlers and he's like, who are you? And he's like, I am vengeance. And it's like, okay, Batman, like I think you can do that with one Riddler maybe, but like having a bunch, like I guess helps. But again, you could do that with like him like stopping one of the vans or something like that, not like, and then him going to like the main stadium section. But like again, it's a growing moment for Batman, and I just think it also goes off the rail when he like, it's like shot so weirdly. It's like everything's like so meticulously shot except for this one sequence where there's 10 Riddlers and then he jumps on a wire for no reason and then he cuts it and it looks like he's about to kill himself for some reason.
And then he was cutting off the power, so it wasn't in the water, but it was weird still.
But it was still weird though, you know? It just like looked weird. Like I think you could have like
it was also just extra.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, okay, this Batman's not extra.
I think for me, the whole scene, like, it would have felt less weird if it was pointed directly at the mayor. Like if this was a political assassination, not that that's any better, but you know, like if it was intended towards one character as opposed to a entire audience of just unsuspecting people, because that just harkens too much to like actual mass shootings and stuff.
True.
And just seeing them like all get their bullets ready and like
dude, that was kind of scary.
That was just a little creepy. Like, I'm not going to dock the movie for it, and I'm not going to be like a baby about it or anything. Like, this doesn't like detract from the movie at all, but like but it is like,
and lightweight has happened.
Yeah, we saw it in Las Vegas. That's what like I started thinking about. Like, it's just like what happened at the Mandalay Bay hotel. You know, just like the horrific act of violence. It was just like strikingly weird. I think though, if instead of like just shooting a bunch of random people, if it was like, okay, the mayor is lying about real change, we have to get rid of her.
Yeah.
If it was pointed towards her, but then also it's too pointed at like her as opposed to Bruce Wayne. So whatever. It all works. It all works. But it was just like,
it is a bit messy.
It was like, I don't know. Because again, part of that is that meticulous nature.
Yes, exactly.
Like picking up the bullets and like the Reddit board basically of them being like, rifles are good. Bring your plastic wrap. Like, we're going to like go in guns blazing.
These guys are all big Ben Shapiro fans. That's probably why he hated the movie so much.
He did hate the movie.
Yeah, so good.
Because he's like, oh no, this is supposed to, they're taking shots at me.
He's like, I'm a movie producer now. I make my own movies.
The Batman is bad.
Whatever. I will say that like one of the things that like I was going back and forth on a little bit was just like, it is slow. You know, it is slow and it is methodical, but also there are times in the movie where I'm like, I feel like there's a redundancy here. Like I said, with the cops and with Falcone and Penguin, like there's a few little redundancies that we could skip over. Like there's a couple of scenes with Gordon and Batman that feel like a little too similar. Like we could just get to the point on some of this. But what I do love is within each individual scene, the length of shots and the length of him staring at things. I just think that the overall movie could have been sort of tightened up a little bit, but like each scene was perfect as it was. But like within the whole, there are some sequences where I'm just like, okay, I can see where some cutting could be done. But it's exactly what Matt Reeves wanted, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you know that's a testament, and I do like this movie
as
a lot.
far as I know, is like this is my favorite Batman. This is Batman to me. Like, and like maybe other people thought Batman was something else, but like at least to me, and what I've really enjoyed, like when I play the Arkham games or I read comics, it's like, like Batman, just like this movie, is meticulous, kind of slow sometimes, but also just like very intellectual and like a detective.
Yeah.
Like I mean, Batman's inspired by like film noir, at least like 80s, 90s Batman, but.
And I feel like for me, this movie is the Batman Begins, and whatever comes next is going to be the Dark Knight for me. Yeah. Like, I think whatever Reeves does next is going to be like my favorite Batman movie. I think this is better than Batman Begins, but
I think it's better than the Dark Knight.
I know, you just said it was your favorite movie.
Already said that. Talk about redundancies.
Talk about redundancies.
March 3rd, 10 p.m.
Voiceover, do you like it?
I love it.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
It's Batman.
It's Batman.
I was hoping Calendar Man would make some sort of appearance, but he was in the Suicide Squad.
There's also a moment where the Riddler had written "Hush."
Yeah,
on
Hush,
something. Yeah, there's a couple of little things.
But
like
again, those things are like nice, like where you're like, like this is the feeling of just a Batman world, and that could be looked back as like an Easter egg. I would love to see Hush. I think Hush is a great villain.
I'm ready for Freeze. Like I said, like I feel like we've never gotten Freeze properly.
Afterwards, I turned to my friend and I was like, I want to watch 20 of these movies in this universe.
That's the thing, is like I like this universe that it sets up so much more than any of the universes previous, because like you said, like we could what I like is that the rest of the movies could feel completely different from this also.
Yeah, true.
Like this could be the serial killer movie. The next one could be a totally different type of movie, like all within like that sort of noirish and like grounded Batman vibe. But like, I if you're expecting the serial killer movie next time, it's not going to happen. If it is Court of Owls, it's going to be a different sort of vibe. If it is Freeze, it's going to be a different sort of vibe. If it's Joker,
he's not really a serial killer vibe.
No.
It would be funny if he made every main villain the Zodiac, though.
Yeah.
They're all leaving riddles now.
He has his own language in ice. We have to de-thaw it.
Jack, do you have any villains from the Batman canon that that you really want to see in the future?
Not particularly. I'm gonna let them do whatever they want to do, and I'll watch it.
I kind of feel like that too.
Yeah.
I'm like, as I stated at the beginning, I don't want to make a Batman thing anymore.
Yeah.
Like Matt Reeves, do it. Like whatever you do is right. But that being said, there are some villains I want to see.
Tell me.
I definitely want to see the ventriloquist. I think he hasn't been done. I think he can be a more grounded version. And I mean, Hush, I said that already. And like, fucking, I'll think of another one after this, but this is like my all-time favorite Batman villain has always been Two-Face.
Yeah.
And I think if they introduce Harvey Dent in the next one and just don't make him Two-Face yet, like that would be perfect.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing I keep saying to people. I'm like, no, but because they've done Two-Face, but they haven't done like Harvey Dent that is just like, unanimously like good and awesome.
Just
and
the
then,
DA.
Yeah. And they kind of did it in The Dark Knight because that's like 2.5 hours. But still, in that movie, he becomes Two-Face and dies. And I think that movie had the unfortunate aspect that they burned half his face off.
Yeah.
So he couldn't be in the sequel because he'd die so fast. His eye would like dry out like really fast. But yeah, I think, and again, I think you do like a comic booky like Two-Face that has like the white in his hair. I'm kind of tired of burned Two-Face, I want like someone dumped some shit on him and it made him blue or some shit. yeah.
He's part of the Blue Man Group now, but not officially.
But half
only
of it,
half.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's clever to have him burned up and shit. Like that's how you do it. But honestly, I think it'd be cooler if he, if it was a little more comic booky. Lean into it.
Yeah, I think that the avenue that they will ultimately go in for the rest of these movies is, because I think they sort of tip their hand to it's all going to be about Bruce Wayne and Gotham, and like it's all going to be about that the political aspect of it and the him being the billionaire prince of Gotham. So I think it's going to be mostly villains that deal with like the social implications of what Batman means and what like the cesspool of a city means and all that sort of stuff. So it's mostly going to be those sorts of characters. So I don't know if Freeze really fits in with that, because it would just be like a small side story, honestly. Like if they put him in the movie but not as the main villain, that's probably like Catwoman basically. That would probably make more sense. But yeah, it's just such an interesting little universe that has just been created. And I say little intentionally this time because like the movie's so small. And like it does get big towards the end for a little bit, but like even that, it's just like a seawall got blown up, and probably 1,000 people died, but like
probably more,
probably a lot.
But
billions of dollars in damages.
Right,
the taxes are going to go up now.
But still, it was really it was a smaller movie, and so I think that they're going to keep with that in the future, and that's pretty exciting. I think what we're getting at though, which is so fun, is like it's so fun. When the universe is created and it's so clear, it's really fun to like fan cast into. And so I think that that's just a testament to this movie's ability to like create its own universe and to like imbue the fans with like a sense of excitement for what's to come. Yeah. So I really do admire what Matt Reeves did with this movie. And I do think it's a really impressive achievement. And I admire him for trying to elevate blockbusters in a way, like, instead of just feeding us garbage, he really did a lot of work on this one. Like you could see all of the work that went into this and how painstaking that process was. So I very much admire that and the work that everybody did on this movie.
Yeah, that has been our podcast on the Batman, the new 2022 Matt Reeves film. What did you think about it? I think we all loved it. I think I loved it the most because I said it was a perfect movie, and I never say that about movies. I've been Tyler.
I've been Daniel.
And I've been Jack.
This has been another Nothing Notable podcast. We'll see you around. Bye-bye.